Welcome. This is our second community conversation, which we hope will be a friendly exploration of how Brunel's research impacts on people in Uxbridge and its community. We hope to be able to provide you with lots of opportunity to ask questions and to discuss the implications of the research that's presented for Uxbridge and its residents in the area. Tonight is the second of 4 events, and welcome to those of you who came last week as well. Thank you for your support. After tonight's event, we have 2 more. So next week, at the same time, we have a session on isolation and loneliness, and then the following week on domestic abuse and the courts. So please just turn up or book or whichever you prefer. So tonight's topic is reducing food waste, and this is going to be led by Danae Manika, who's Professor of Marketing and Business Education at the Brunel Business School. Danae obtained a PhD and NA in advertising from the University of Texas at Austin, which you want to tell from her accent, and a BA in marketing from the University of Stirling, which I is less. I think that's less obvious. Sorry, I wasn't going to do that. I shouldn't add lib. She's held several academic positions, including at Newcastle University, at Queen Mary, at Durham, and at the University of Texas at Austin. Danae's research focused on an effective message construction for behaviour change and across a range of social and environmental domains. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Hello, everyone. Thank you very, very much for coming. So today I'm going to talk through a bit of what I do, the research that I do, focusing more on kind of reducing food waste and particularly food waste recycling. I'm going to introduce you to the findings from our research team, and then I'm going to put forth some suggested solutions. Now, everything that I will say today, they're based on my own independent research with my research team, so they don't represent the council, and actually I don't work for the council. I think I need to say this because food waste tends to be quite a controversial topic among residents based on my own experience talking to residents in London. So I'll tell you a bit about my story and what kind of led me to be interested in food waste recycling. So I used to live in Uxbridge up until August 2021. And during the COVID-19 pandemic and the national lockdowns, I started working from home more often. That led me to cook more at home, and that also produced a lot more food waste. So then, during the lockdown, I started thinking about food waste and how much we produce in every single household. And I wonder, do people care about this? Do people notice? Do people actually recycle food waste? Do they know what happens to the food waste once it's collected? So what did I do? I went on the website of Hillingdon. I tried to find what information is available on food waste recycling. That's what I typed on the Google engine. And what I found is that Hillingdon actually provides a lot of helpful information. It actually has a nice animated video. It shows you what happens to the food waste when it's picked up by the truck. It tells you what food items can actually go in your food waste caddy, what cannot go in the food waste caddy, and what is it that the service provides to the residents. So I was looking, and what I found is that, first of all, Hillingdon provides you with a small grey food waste caddy that you can actually place in your kitchen. It also provides you with caddy liners. Those are the biodegradable bags that you can put your food waste in it and then seal it so that they can pick it up. In addition to that, they also provide a larger food waste caddy for outdoors. And this is provided for houses only, not flats. And I was like, that's interesting. No?
I've got one. I live on a boat.
Excellent. Okay. So, boats and houses then. Thank you for that.
And some flats.
And some flats. Excellent. So, I'm telling you here the information I saw on the website. So that means that the website needs to be updated. Yeah. So, good insight. Thank you for that. I'm going to take a note. That's why it's really nice to talk to residents, because they tell you their experiences and they can give you up-to-date knowledge that maybe is not available online. So thank you for that. any other insights, more than welcome. Put your hand up, talk to me, I'm here to discuss it with you. So aside from that, I saw that the caddy liners, there is an automatic subscription service that allows you to have caddy liners on a frequent basis delivered to your house. Or you can pick them up from the library, as long as you have, in essence, a proof of address. Now, I looked through the information and I also found that the council provides a compost bin. So those are bins where you can put, in essence, things like eggshells and fruit peelings, and through, in essence, time, they're turned into compost that you can use for your gardening needs. All of that free of charge. Interestingly, because I lived in multiple councils around London throughout my time here, so I've been living in the UK the last time 10 years now, before the US, before that Scotland, as Jeff said. So for the last 10 years, I've moved across kind of London, and I saw that there's also variability in terms of what each council provides. Hillingdon is actually doing a great job. They provide it for free of charge, and also the liners. But if we actually look at councils across London, we actually see that that's not the case. This is an infographic that I'm going to pass around, and it gives you kind of a snapshot of food waste and what the different councils provide. So if you take a look here, the green and the red boxes, it shows you which food items are pretty much being recycled in the food waste caddy, depending on which council you actually live in. The red tells you they're not picking it up. The green, they're picking it up. So this kind of variation, if you're someone like me moving around different councils in London, can actually lead to a lot of confusion, wouldn't you say? Yes, please.
What happens to the food that's taken away?
Excellent question. I was coming to that. Thank you for that prompt. We are in sync. So I found out what happens to the food waste. So once it's picked up by the truck, it's transported to the Victoria Road Waste Centre. Then it's loaded to another truck that goes into South London's anaerobic digester facilities. And that's where, in a tank where there's a lack of oxygen, bacteria turn the food waste into biomethane gas. And that biomethane gas is used to have electricity in homes, but also it fuels the waste trucks that collect your waste. They're purely sustainable. As well as whatever is remaining is turned into fertilizer. So what that means is that when you're actually recycling your food waste, you turn it into electricity for houses, and you also turn it into fertilizer.
What is the problem with the food going into a landfill?
The problem with the food is because it produces methane, and also it produces carbon dioxide. And all of those contribute to climate change. And actually, methane is 21 times more harmful than carbon dioxide, because it contributes 21 times more into global warming. And if we think about Hillingdon, I'll tell you this, how much is the percentage of food waste that the black bin trash contain in Hillingdon? What percentage contains food waste? What's the percentage of food waste into our black bin trash in Hillingdon? Do you know?
Too much.
Could you guess? A quarter?
70%.
70%, so too high, too low? Somewhere in between.
50%.
Very close. So 44%. 44% of our black bin trash contains food waste. Let me put it in context for around the world. 10% of our greenhouse emissions in the whole world is because of food waste. 10%. So that means that every small change can actually make a very, very big difference. Now, aside from the environmental benefits of food waste recycling, do you know what are other benefits? Any other benefits that you can think of? Or is it only for environmental reasons that we should actually engage in food waste recycling?
Reduces vermin.
I'm sorry?
Reduces vermin.
It reduces vermin?
Well, there is also cost involved. Somebody said about putting landfill, and it's the landfill tax. It costs a lot of money, obviously, to transport things, take it away. But I guess what you're probably coming to is around reducing food waste.
So it costs money? Yeah.
Also, a lot of money.
For the council. Now, there are other benefits waste recycling. Number one, think about your local community. If you have food that is near expiration date, why can you not donate it so that someone in the local community can benefit from it? There are many people in need. There are food banks all around. We talked about this earlier. There are apps where you can actually log any food that is remaining and someone can come and collect it. So you can actually benefit your local community by, in essence, disposing food waste through a food bank or a charity. There are other benefits. What about the individual resident? What is the benefit for the individual resident? Can you think of anything? Waste less, spend less. So the less, in essence, you waste, the less you spend. And that results in savings for your own pocket. Is that what you wanted to say?
I was going to say, if you have food waste in your black sacks, they're likely to be drawn out in like boxes. So if you have your food waste separate and you have it in one of those secure bins, you're less likely to have a problem with boxes fitting them.
Excellent. Yes, that can be a benefit as well.
I don't think it's a benefit of food waste recycling.
Mm-hmm.
It's a benefit of not wasting food.
Mm-hmm.
From the recycling part of your question.
Yes.
Don't we need to differentiate between peelings and you sitting working at home, the raw food going out? There's a difference between peelings and producing your own food at home.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't waste any hardly any food at all in our household. But I carry that bag bin out and it's really happy. There are 6 of us there. So if we term that between wasted food is food that you could have eaten and wasted it, how can we terminalise the peelings from your potatoes and stuff and the vegetables that you're preparing food?
Well, you can put it in your compost bin.
No. So under this subject, can we have different terminologies between food that you could have eaten or wasting and food that we prepared and got peelings left over?
Yes, so literature uses the term food waste disposal practices. And those, in essence, contain any form of, in essence, action that you can take to, in essence, minimize the effects on the environment. Now, within that, we do distinguish between food that has expired and food remains. Let me continue. So, in terms of like putting into context, so other benefits I wanted to highlight. So first of all, food waste recycling also saves water. Think about the fruits and veg that you might throw into your black bin. Agriculture has actually used water to produce them. So by not wasting them, you're actually saving water. So there are multiple benefits, what I want to conclude, for multiple stakeholders out there that maybe people haven't thought of. It's not only about the environment, it's more about also society at large and what you can do, in essence, with that waste or how you can minimize waste in the first place. There's another terminology that specifically we use, and it's called food waste minimization. So how to minimize food waste in the first place rather than recycle them. Out of all of this, so this is just a bit of information about Hillingdon and kind of the overall benefits of food waste recycling. Let me now talk a bit more about the research and the findings that we found from this research. So I should say this is research that was funded by Brunel University London. So the university does fund projects like this that are of benefit to society and the environment. And my team and I, so we're about 7 of us, there are 5 academics and 2 PhD students that are involved in this research. And one of our wonderful PhD students is with us, sitting in the back. Kais, everyone. So, Kais is doing a PhD in design, and he helped do all those wonderful infographics that I showed you, and I'm going to keep showing you in a minute. So, we, in essence, wanted to find out what are the capabilities, the opportunities, and the motivations for food waste recycling. So capabilities, those are physical as well as cognitive and psychological that may influence food waste recycling. Opportunities, these are things that are outside the individual. They're contextual factors that might, in essence, lead to a behavior or not. Think about resources, time, money, and how that may lead to a behavior or not. And also motivations. Those can be reflective or automatic. So it can be based on elaborative thinking, or it could be an emotion that might, in essence, lead to something. Or it can be a habit. Don't even think about it, and you do it. So we wanted to look at all these different kind of capabilities, opportunities, and motivations, and how they might lead to food waste recycling, and associated barriers to change. And we wanted to look specifically in a very small segment of the population that, based on literature, requires the most attention. That is young adults, 18 to 30 years old. Why? Because they produce actually most of the food waste, according to research. There are also people who might move from one area to another, which contributes to the confusion. So we first started a project focused on that segment, and what I'm working on right now, including speaking to you, is to get more insights from a wider kind of population angle. So we did interviews. We, in essence, invited participants in London to, in essence, interview with us. And we offered them an incentive as part of, in essence, the interview process for their time. And we wanted to know more about their food waste recycling behavior. Now, how did we select them? We didn't choose anyone. We did a survey online that we actually promoted through social media on the council's pages, Facebook, Instagram, everything that young people do, and where they are. And we actually asked them to fill out a short online survey. The survey was for screening purposes. We just wanted to know who does what and whether they do anything. But because okay, if I ask people, do you actually recycle? Most people will go, yeah, I do, yes, of course I do, yes. So what we did is we actually asked them about different types of behavior. So recycling, for example, plastic, recycling also food, many types of other things related to pro-environmental behavior. Why? Because literature says there is what we call licensing effect. The licensing effect tells us that once we do something good, then we actually have the excuse to do something bad. So we gave the opportunity to people to tell us that, yes, they recycle plastic, yay, that's wonderful. And then we asked them about food waste. And we asked them about each item, each food waste item individually, and what they do with it. From that screening survey, we were able to classify our participants in 3 groups. Those who engage in food waste recycling correctly, those who minimally or incorrectly engage in food waste recycling, because some people say that they do recycle on a frequent basis, but when we ask them about particular items, they're actually doing the wrong thing. And then the last group, which is the people that didn't recycle at all, they didn't even have a caddy, didn't even, in essence, be aware that there was this service provided. And we invited to our interviews only the people with no or limited food waste recycling behavior, because we wanted to talk to them. We wanted to understand their capabilities, their opportunities, and their motivations, as well as barriers to engaging in this type of behavior. And based on the research, we, in essence, found some interesting results that then we used to propose some solutions. Today, I want 2 things from you. 1, I want to know whether the findings resonate with you, or if you have any further views. And 2, whether the suggested solutions would actually work for you, for a wider community, not only young adults. So let me tell you about the findings. I'm going to use my notes now. So first of all, what we found out is that during the COVID-19 pandemic and the national lockdowns, a lot of people behaved like me. A lot of people were staying more at home, cooking more, and in essence producing a lot more food waste. And it's interesting because people were actually reflecting on that kind of behavior, and they were talking more about it. Because when we began the interviews, we didn't ask them, what is it that you do about food waste recycling? Remember, the screening survey was about different behaviors. We just asked them about their experiences during the COVID-19 pandemic. And one of the things that they told us is that They stayed more at home, they cooked more, and they produced a lot more waste. And that's where we started the conversation. We didn't want to influence them in the first place. Yeah? The other thing that we found is that a lot of people may be recycling plastic, but may not be recycling food waste. So that shows you that food waste recycling maybe hasn't been normalized yet as a behavior in the general public. And more needs to happen than just one leaflet from the council. I mean, who remembers all the items that can go in the caddy and not? I don't, and I do research in this. I would actually like the information on the time that I am above the caddy to know exactly what can go in it. And that was the same feeling that residents had. And those with limited engagement in food waste recycling, they were actually engaging in incorrect behavior. Let me give you some examples. Someone, let's say, living in Harrow Council, putting pet food in the food waste caddy. Harrow doesn't collect pet food in there, but Hillingdon does. Yay for Hillingdon. So that was one incorrect behavior. Another one, conserved food, like pickles and marmalade. Should we put them in a caddy? Yes or no? Who says yes?
No.
The answer is no. Okay? So no, they don't pick them up. Okay? What about milk? Expired milk. Do we put it in the caddy?
No.
Better in this one. Excellent. So I don't want this to turn into a quiz. But in a way, people were actually engaging in behavior, feeling good that we're doing something good for the benefit of the environment, but actually we're doing it incorrectly. Some people even told me they actually had the whole kind of, let's say, canned food that was expired, and they just chuck it all together into the recycling bin, which is not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to empty the contents into the food waste caddy, clean it, and then place it in the recycling bin. So many people really talked about this kind of thing like, oh, I'm very proud I'm doing this, but in the end they were doing it incorrectly. And when we tried to talk to them about it, people were very receptive. People were happy that we were talking to them and kind of giving them personalized feedback on their behavior. So that's one insight that we can get from there. Personalized feedback, not a one-size-fits-all information leaflet that someone puts away and then pretty much is forgotten. Now, in terms of capabilities, we talked about the lack of knowledge, so people want to know which items go where, what to do with them, where to get caddy liners from. Some people don't know how to do that, but also remembering which food items go where. So that was very important, especially because young adults were moving across different boroughs in London, and there was so much variation that they couldn't take away what they learned in one place to another easily. And by talking to family and friends, that added more to the confusion. So word of mouth is very effective. Unfortunately, in this case, it was the wrong word of mouth. Another thing that we found out is that when people talked about benefits, a lot of people talked about savings to the individual. So that showed us that this is very important for individual residents, and hence we need to talk more about it. Another kind of element that we talked about is that people don't actually know what happens to the food waste. So going back to your original question. So what happens to it? Why is it important? Many people actually didn't know that it's converted to energy or fertilizer. Once people knew that, they started actually being more interested in it. So we need to increase awareness. And just a website or a leaflet will not do the job again. I talked about the confusion. Another element that came up is some councils, if I'm going to show the infographic, I'm going to give it to you, everyone, to look at if you want. But pretty much some councils do not provide caddies, so you have to pay for them, and also you have to pay for the caddy liners. So in terms of opportunities, a lot of people talked about the financial constraints of engaging in food waste. So we need, first of all, some kind of consistency across, the boroughs. But also we need to overcome that financial burden on the individual resident to, in essence, promote food waste. So that's behavior change 101. Reduce kind of constraints, increase benefits. Another thing that they talked about is the lack of regular collection by the council. During the COVID-19 pandemic, some councils actually stopped collecting food waste separately. they actually told us, put it in your black bin, because they didn't have enough people to do the job. Can you imagine what effect that has? Someone who has learned a good behavior suddenly is told to stop it and do the bad thing again, and then they continue to do the bad thing. So again, misinformation or changing of information and guidelines doesn't lead to clarity in terms of what is the desired behavior. So government needs to be more consistent in terms of what exactly they say that residents should be doing. Another element is the features of the caddy. So a lot of people talked about the unfavorable features of the caddy. They said it was unstable, unreliable, the lock mechanism doesn't work, it kind of attracts pests. There are health concerns, related to touching the waste, or for example, health concerns associated with rodents in the area. So a lot of people talked about this, or, oh, the caddy's too small, or the caddy's too big for my kitchen. So there were all these kind of features related kind of inputs from residents about the caddy that kind of, they said, prohibited them from doing what they wanted to do. Of course, we know there's a difference between what people say they want to do and what they do. So we call that the intention-behavior gap. So sometimes people intend to do something, but in the end, they don't do it. And of course, in terms of motivation, there was this yuck factor, the disgust associated with food waste. A lot of young people said, oh, I don't want to touch these things. No, I just want to put them in a paper and then chuck them into the recycling bin for plastic. I'm like, oh, sure. It does happen, and I'm not mocking anyone. It's just the fact that people don't actually know what is correct and what is not. And really, it's up to everyone, as well as the council and government, to tell us how to, in essence, engage in correct practices. And then, of course, inconvenience. A lot of the times we do things automatically without thinking about them. Okay, think about driving or riding a bike. These are things that you don't need to think a lot. Once you learn it, you know it, and it's a skill that you have acquired. We need some sort of similar mechanism for these type of behaviors. Once they become habitual, we overcome a lot of those barriers. Because a lot of people talked about inconvenience. Oh, it's really inconvenient, or, oh no, it's Christmas, not today. Or, for example, people talked about, oh no, I'm fasting for Ramadan, I cannot do this right now. So people gave excuses, and we really need to, in essence, make things more convenient for people to do them. So these were some of the general kind of findings in terms of how this may lead to kind of lack of action. So these are the views. As I said, I want your feedback in terms of whether the views resonate with you. But before I do, I also want to talk about solutions. And I want your input on solutions as well. So what can we do about it? So first of all, we said that there are 3 levels of information that needs to be provided to the residents. Must have information, should have information, could be good to have information. The must have information is, first of all, there is a food waste service available, especially in Hillingdon, free of charge. How many people out there don't know about this? I can imagine a lot of people. So how can we actually get the word out? Simple. We can put a sticker or a tag on the black bin. Most people have a black bin, right? So you can, no?
We don't have black bins in Hillingdon, unfortunately.
Okay.
No, we don't have wonderfully. It's good that we don't have black bins in this.
Okay, well, what do you have instead?
We have black bags. We have black bags.
Yeah, you just...
Can I mind if I interrupt? I discovered recently speaking to one of the councillors, right, that nothing goes into landfill in this borough. Virtually nothing goes landfill. The black bins from South Gloucester, Victoria State, are taken by train to Avonmouth and are used to generate electricity. Energy-dashboard.co.uk is an amazing site. Energy-dashboard.co.uk. Click on that, click on biomass, it will show you, waste, it will show you, there's 3 generating stations there. Let's explain what's realised on that is, it's awful putting your food, cuttings and peelings into black bins, because that generator has got to dry that vegetation before it becomes electricity. So people need to know that, first of all, your food not need to wait peelings or, unfortunately, not much time, quite often is used to electricity and fertilizer. But also, if you do it wrong, it produces less electricity down at Avon.
Yep.
So I just realised that was a really important point. Because when I drove down my road, I can see houses with lots of black bin bags outside, and no green ones, no green caddies.
I'll make a note of that. That's a
And I'd
good
like to knock
point.
on their door and talk to them about it.
Yeah,
So
no,
we do need an education program that gets across to everyone what I've discovered recently about the subject. I'm doing a website on climate change, by the way, so I'm lots of research on the subject.
Yeah, thank you. No, that's a good point. I'm going to write it down. So now that you know he's doing relevant work, you can ask him all the questions. But if you have bags, because you get the bags either delivered or at the library, correct? No, the bags of recycling.
They're recycling bags, yeah.
They're clear.
So they're the clear recycling
clear.
bags.
Yeah.
Okay, do you all get those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of you?
The plastic ones.
Yes, the plastic clear bags for
Yeah.
recycling. Okay.
Yeah.
Can we put the sticker on it when it gets delivered for you to, in essence, be informed? So some kind of prompt.
What's the sticker going to say?
So the sticker is just, in essence, promoting the fact that there's a food waste service in Hillingdon. So trying to raise awareness. So my thought is to either put it on a black bin, if you have one, or some kind of information that is reaching every single household. So you made a good point that you receive only the bags for recycling plastic, for example. So maybe it's a sticker on there that says, do you have a food waste caddy? Something that can prompt people to potentially visit the website and order a caddy, or can prompt them to think about whether they want a caddy. Because a lot of the people that we also talked about, they were not even aware that there was such a service in the different councils. So it might be different from one council to another, which we can actually see from here. So that could be some kind of prop, some kind of tag, something to increase awareness that there is this service. Now, once in essence you have that information, the other must-have information is what goes into the caddy. So which food waste items, depending on which council it is. As we said, that one leaflet from the council will not cut it, because it's not at the time of the behaviour that is happening. So the idea that in essence we had, and this again is because we were focusing on young adults, so I want to say that's based on that cohort, so 18 to 30 years old. So most 18 to 30 years old, they have either a laptop or they have a phone that they can actually use to go on a website. Of course, this solution kind of restricts application to people that might not have access to the internet, so I need to raise that as a limitation. But pretty much imagine this. This is the other infographic. So similarly, once you have a food waste caddy, imagine if you saw a yellow sticker on it and it said, I can talk, chat to me. And it had a QR code. If you haven't seen a QR code, it's something like this that you can scan with your phone. It's like a barcode. And then you scan it and it takes you to a web page. And that web page loads an app where you can actually talk to the caddy as if it was a human. So the caddy is called Alex. Hi, Alex, the food waste caddy. How are you today? So, for example, we have technology like Alexa or Google Home. You talk to them, you ask questions. So you can ask questions, what time is it? Or put a timer on, or give me a recipe for X. Similarly, you can actually talk to your food waste caddy. It's a humanized, in essence, animated object that can answer your questions. So at the time when you're in the kitchen and you have a food item that you don't know what to do with, well, you ask, so, well, Alex, what do I do with eggshells? And Alex replies, oh, actually, you can either put it in the food waste caddy, or you can put it in the compost bin. Or I can say, well, Alex, this milk and also this is actually near expiry date. Is there a recipe I can use? And maybe Alex can give you a recipe that you can actually utilize the food that is near expiry date. Or you can donate the food to your local community. Or you can ask information, what happens to the food waste? Or you can ask, when is the next collection date for the food waste caddy? Or order me some liners, please. So what I'm trying to communicate here, I want to take out the burden of remembering information from residents and utilize technology advancements to make our life easier and in that way promote food waste recycling. Now, this information is not enough. What we need to ensure is that this information is in line with the lifestyles of individuals. A lot of the information from the council is not personalized, and that's where we lose most people, in that intention to behavior gap. If we really want to translate intentions to behavior, what we need to do is we actually need to make it personalized. So first of all, we need to take into account seasonality aspects, winter, summer, or holidays, you know, Christmas, Diwali, Easter, Ramadan, and in that way tailor information related to food waste and what to do with it, relevant to our lifestyles. This kind of technology could also give you personalized feedback. So if it learns that, for example, you are a fan of eggs and you use a lot of eggs in your weekly basis, maybe they will recommend other things that you can do, recipes, or they can remind you, in essence, what to do with it. Similarly, if you move to different councils, the app will actually enable you to see where you are based on the user entering the postcode. So it will give you up-to-date information depending on the council where you're in. So you know what exactly can go into the food waste category. It can tell you also about the different benefits or what happens to the food waste and other questions that you might have relevant to this at the time when you need it the most. Aside from this, other things could be, for example, you can ask, how do I make, for example, carrots last longer? So it can give you tips on how to make your food last longer. Or, for example, if, let's say, it tracks your kind of eating habits, it can give you recommendations on what food items you might actually not need to buy in the first place. And in that way, saves you money. Yes?
I think the real nudge probably here is during the cost of living crisis is you want to reach people who perhaps don't use it so much, is actually how they're going to save money.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So that would be...
So actually this reminded me something. Thank you so much. So because we collected data during the COVID-19 pandemic, many people actually talked about that. So they actually said it's a timely opportunity to promote food waste recycling because of what has happened, what has in essence we passed through. So it might be a combination of a good opportunity for us to promote it more and get people to behave in a way that we want.
Well, one other, sorry.
Yes.
I was going to say, what's the, have you, in terms of the overall strategy, we talk about London boroughs, but the GLA and through the Mayor for London, because they used to set strategy and policy, and again in supporting, although the boroughs will be very different, there must be an umbrella in terms of that overall arching strategy and how to reach into there and out from the top as well.
Yes, that's very important. So I actually learned it last week, so I'm not an expert in the environmental law and what's required. But so I'm just going to say parenthesis, this is based on my own understanding. Hopefully, you know, it is correct. So the councils, they have what they call kind of legal duties versus powers. So legal duties, for example, the fact that they need to collect your household waste. And then there's powers for well-being, the things that they can offer in addition to what they have to legally provide. So for example, community centers is a power. It's within their power to do it, but they don't have regulations or penalties for not doing so. I believe that food waste is within the power rather than the duties. And based on what you said, legislation and policy that kind of requires the collection of food waste items and proper disposal methods might be a good way forward to make it also more consistent.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think a big part of the problem as well, which ties into the cost of living crisis, is that a lot of the sell-by dates are so inaccurate, and that's not just on like your dried foods and your tinned foods, but even on fresh produce. You know, you might get a pint of milk that says it's out of date, but actually it will last another 3-4 days. But a lot of people psychologically think, oh, because it says that, I can't use it, but actually it's fine to use. So I think there needs to be an education. Pardon?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think there should be an education.
That's a very good point, so I need to write that down.
Yeah, I think it will help people, A, save money because they're not chucking food away that doesn't need to be chucked away.
Yes.
But also you know, it helps you save money in the respect that you're not repeatedly buying food. I think one of the supermarkets, it might have been Asda, one of their CEOs said recently they were thinking of taking the sell-by date off milk altogether because, you know, you can use the smell method. It's not completely, obviously, always accurate. It might be a bit lumpy, but, you know, my point is that it's better like than having these dates on there. And we're all chucking food away. And I know I've done it. I think, oh, I don't want to eat that egg. But actually, like, this is a really good tip. With eggs, if you put it in a bowl of water, if it floats to the top, you know, if it doesn't float to the top, it's fine to eat. And if it doesn't, then you can't eat it.
Yes.
So, like, finding out little strategies like that is really good tips because it helps you to save money and not chuck food away.
That's great, and I think that can be integrated within a technological app, but also maybe we could utilize, if we can find a way to make it consistent, independent of where you live, then word of mouth would work well. So you can pass the information from one individual to another because it's more personalized and it works better.
I think this man's point around like the GLA, but I think it needs to be wider than that. It needs to be at government level. I don't think it should be the council's responsibility because it's not just borough from borough, it's city to city.
Yep.
Whereas if there was a more centralised kind of approach to it, which there absolutely should be, that way there isn't miseducation, miscommunication, and everybody's sort of on the same page. And also I presume that it would also mean that, you know, you haven't got different centres, that some can do this recycling, some can do that. So it's more cost efficient too, because it's all the same products that are going into it.
That's right.
It's got to be consistent across the country so that everybody knows, like the highway code, you know, everybody knows that it drives the same across the country, while recycling is the same.
Yes, I agree.
All the boroughs on the west side of London
Yes.
need to be working better together. Our recycling goes to Biffa in Edmonton, a long way away. Why have we got trucks going down a corridor to take our food waste down? You know, it's ridiculous what's happening. There should be far better, there should be a wide annual digestion unit near Hillingdon, to cover Hillingdon and to Harrow, rather than all down the corridor. And Hillingdon, by the way, you know Hillingdon just started recently doing it. Yeah, before it used to go with the gardens.
Yes. Well, actually, that's a point for Jeff. You need to invite someone in transportation and logistics, an expert, to tell us how to do this, you know, more effectively. So.
Yeah, I mean, I do know the question of where you process this waste is mixed in with the environmental cost of moving it about. It is actually a complex piece and changes over time as technologies change. I do know that, but I'm guessing probably the situation we have now is suboptimal in a number of ways. But that's a research topic that actually some people
it's beyond me.
Because you can plot the processing points for these things in different places, and depending how far you transport them between that, you can optimise the total energy costs in different ways.
Yes.
Do you think there's a role for some degree of compulsion, or would that be counterproductive? For example, if all households where it's possible to collect, perhaps must have a bin, or perhaps restrict the volume of black bin or the weight of black bag waste to encourage it, or would that be counterproductive, do you think?
Well, so research suggests anything related to social related behaviors. So that in the past there used to be an influx of research of using kind of punishments or incentives to kind of promote a behavior. Punishments don't actually work very well. It doesn't actually signal the message, the good message that we want to convey. So a lot of the behavior change and communications research now has started to go into the positive aspect. So for example, I'm looking at pride appeals and how pride can actually motivate you to engage in other types of similar kind of behaviors once you do the one behavior, contrary to the licensing effect I was talking earlier, that once you do something good, you can do something bad. And also in terms of incentives, they're actually not sustainable for the longer run. So if you have kind of an incentive monetary or some kind of voucher, then at the end, you know, you really need the big powers to, in essence, keep that going. It's a way to start making a behavior more habitual, but the question is what happens afterwards if they are stopped. But there is some research looking at incentivizing that. Now, in terms of making it a law, I don't know, because I would imagine if, and this is not my specialty, so I'm just giving you my opinion, but if you were to start making it a law that you have to recycle, then you would have to have penalties associated with incorrect behaviour. I'm not sure that would be the way to go. If that answers your question. Yes?
I think another reason it would be problematic is just because people recycle, it doesn't mean they do it correctly. You know, a lot of people recycle plastic, but they don't wash that plastic beforehand,
Or remove the film.
or don't remove the things. So, you know, we might then have another problem on our hands where everyone's doing it, but that's doing it incorrectly. So it would probably be more economically efficient for us to actually invest in that education process as opposed to, like, you know, punishment or whatever. But I think something that could be, like, quite rewarding for people is understanding, like, I don't know, if you took an average household of however many people, educating people on, okay, well, if this is how much you eat on a weekly basis, this is how much it equates to in terms of your energy usage. So by doing this, you funded your TV usage for the month. I don't know, that's just a really poor example.
No, that is a good example.
When people are able to translate it into kind of feasible or tangible things that they do on a day-to-day basis, I think that can help to motivate people and say, oh, actually, if I do this more, this is the benefit that it can drive, and it makes you feel good because you know it's like an environmental factor as well.
Definitely. So I've done some work on employee pro-environmental behavior, like energy saving within organizations. So again, my research is more about marketing social and environmental behaviors. In that type of research, I saw that messages like that, where in essence you equate it to something that you're used to getting, actually works very well because it makes it more personalized. But I haven't tried it in a residence context, so that's a good idea.
Sorry, I know I talked a lot.
Yes.
No, I was just going to ask a quick question. Does your research just relate to, like, individuals and households? Because I can imagine from a supermarket standpoint and business perspective, the food waste there, you know, in France, food waste is donated to food banks and whatnot, but here you've got the problem of they're just chucking it away. They're not recycling the plastic or other materials that it's in, and also the food's being wasted. So I can imagine that from a business perspective, the contribution to food waste is much larger than from an individual standpoint. And is that something that's looking at being tackled?
Yeah, that's a very good point. So I do research in organizations and employees, but I haven't researched food waste particularly. So I've looked at energy saving of employees as well as recycling, general recycling. And what I found out is that employees actually respond really well to initiatives where you outline the benefits for multiple stakeholders. So, for example, I helped a charity in London run a campaign in a hospital where we saw how when you, in essence, promote employee pro-environmental behavior within a hospital, how this can actually benefit, first of all, the environment, then the hospital, so the business, in terms of saving money, to the employees. They actually reported better job experience and less burnout. And then also the hospital patients said that they actually had a better experience. So I analyzed some of the results that charity run, and that shows how these can actually be beneficial in a business organizational context. I did the same thing in another organization, a university actually, and again the similar type of findings, but I haven't looked at food waste, so you think that would be a good way to go. So I have a research idea, Jeff.
I was going to say there are commercial systems for collecting from hotels and restaurants.
And an idea to add to that would be Brunel. You're one of the bigger employer. You could be a pioneer. Hillingdon Hospital, huge amount of employees. They feed people every day.
We have our own. We have our own anaerobic system.
Brunel University London is one of the most sustainable campuses in higher education. So I need to say that.
That's a good thing to know.
Yeah, we've got a very big anaerobic system. All our food waste.
But when you did your research, did you actually identify the number of? Because when I walk down a typical street and I see the black bags, I don't see that many. We've got one, but I don't see that many food. Recyclers, the little green ones. So did you research? Does Hillingdon tell you? I'm just picking Hillingdon, but do they say, like, we know that only 5%, or we know that 20%? Did you manage to pick that up?
No. So the people didn't know.
That would be a way to at least start a conversation with the resident to say, well, actually, why aren't people? Maybe, as you said, the communication is wrong. Do they know they can even have them? You know?
Many people didn't know they can have them. That was the first thing that they told us.
Yeah. Hillingdon should be interested in obviously making that number climb. Yeah.
I have two hands, so here and then here.
He was first.
You were first, okay.
Thank you. So I've delivered change programs at organisations to that behavioural change. A three-pronged approach we use is effective communication, so you said, also training and awareness, also champions networks. So you upskill employees with the organisation in whatever they're trying to do that change in, and then you push them out, and then they sort of feed back and try to pass on the knowledge to other individuals. Obviously different compared to a borough, compared to an organisation. But in the sense we have a champions network already, we have counsellors, upskill them. They should be talking to residents anyway, right? Attending meetings, knocking on doors, etc.
Green
Upskill them,
champions.
push them out, they can spread the message.
Yeah, that is a very good suggestion. So green champions across other contexts, not food waste specifically, I've seen that they actually do work very well. So yes, I agree with you very much. Good idea.
I was just going to say that of the 18 to 30-year-olds that I know, mostly the older range, they don't know how to cook, they don't know about food, and I feel very upset about it because I came from a family when my mother was a really bad cook, but I learned at school, and I learned all those budgeting and managing things at school, and it's such a shame that that's gone out. I mean, it's going to take a long time to reverse it, but it needs to be something that people grow up with, even if they don't have it in their own family.
That's a very good point, yes.
And so the younger people that I know, they'll get something like you heard them say, can I eat this? They don't know how to smell it to know whether it's good.
No,
it's
that's
a
good
skill
point.
that you learn from other people.
Yeah, definitely. Can I ask you some questions? And I want to see hands, if that's okay. I just want to try and understand the room. So how many of you recycle plastic? Can I see hands for you? Okay, pretty good. Yep. How many of you recycle?
And in Hillingdon Borough, plastic bags. So recently, Harry card, Hillingdon Borough in plastic bags.
Yeah. What about food waste? Okay, great. And how many of you feel 100% confident on your food waste items that can be actually placed in the caddy? Who feels 100% confident?
Agreed. So agreed.
Okay, wonderful. And before today, did you actually know about where does the food waste go and what happens to it? Some of you did, okay. How many of you knew all the benefits I outlined about food waste recycling? All of them. Good. Excellent. So I always like to do this because it's really nice to understand, in essence, who is in the room. But also it gives you an idea if you were looking at the hands, the people that raise their hands, how many people out of, let's say, a community, and I would imagine that here with us today we have a lot of people who are really interested in the topic. So it gives you an idea. If not every hand was up today, that gives you an idea of how it can reflect kind of the wider population. So there's a lot to be done, and every small, difference can make a big change.
Over lockdown, so there's this format on Twitter called Spaces, and if you're not familiar with it, it's ultimately you can go in and it's like a big conversation. You actually speak, so everyone can take turns and speak. And there was a trending space over lockdown called Bin Space, and there were thousands of people, young people from across the country, that were in there talking about wanting to improve recycling and food recycling. So I think it's really positive to know. It actually ended up going on for 6 hours. I was on there till 3 o'clock in the morning. If you type in the hashtag, you could still see some of the tweets. But I think it's really positive to know it was people from all across the country talking about it. So I do think there's definitely like an appetite, but it's an education piece that needs to kind of to grow amongst young people. And I think a lot of young people do live in flats or shared accommodation, and that can be difficult if the facilities aren't there. I wonder if if flats were able to get a sort of centralised compost bin or something that everyone could use together. But also like visual cues, if on the boxes, if they were to be redesigned with just an X, you can have this or you can't have this. Those kind of things, because I know life is so manic and busy, especially now things are going back to some sort of normality. You don't always have time to stop and think, let me look on site on an app. But if you can visually see it in front of you, it starts to develop those habits into you, and then eventually you won't even need to look again. So I think visual prompts would be a good solution.
Thank you. Yes, that's why we also thought about the stickers as a starting point. But yes, you're making a good point. Thank you. So if there are no other comments or questions, we can discuss again among us. I first would like to say thank you to my research team. So I do have to say their names. So Eleni Iacovidou, Anna Cajoto, Eugene Pei, Federico Coquelehia, Kais Ahmad, and Can Mack, and all of them contributed to the research. And of course, ultimately, I have to say a big thank you to Jeff and also Brunel University London for inviting me here and of course funding my research. I really do appreciate it. And of course to all of you. Thank you so much for coming. Really enjoyed this conversation. As you saw, I took notes. So you gave me really good insights, and I'm going to take some more. If you have more comments or insights, please feel free to email me. So my name is Danae, D-A-N-A-E. You won't find any other person at Brunel with that name, okay? So you can easily Google me. I will come up. So Danae, so feel free to email me. I would love to hear from you. And thank you so much for contributing and discussing things with me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.